Good morning and welcome to the 18th Annual Muskogee Women's Leadership Conference Week of Women. I'm Kimberly Williams. I'm the Dean of Northeastern State University's Muskogee campus, and I'm today's Women's Leadership Conference Committee presenter. And I can't talk this morning because it's Monday and I've just been off for 10 days. We are so excited for this week. We've got so many great speakers and networking events. If you haven't already, be sure and pull out your leadership development toolkit. It should have been emailed to you yesterday. Billie Smith and Paradigm Shift put this together, and we're going to hear more about Billie and from Billie here in just a few minutes. I'd like to start off by thanking our sponsors. We couldn't host an amazing week like this without their help. Our presenting sponsor is Muskogee Creek Nation Casino. Our host sponsor is Indian Capital Technology Center. We also have sponsors from First Star Bank, Georgia Pacific, Green Country Behavioral Health Services, St. Francis Hospital of Muskogee, Armstrong Bank, Cherokee Casino, the Muskogee Phoenix, Northeastern State University, Refresco, Advantage Controls, Connor State College, Edward Jones, and Love Bottling. Today's virtual session sponsor is Green Country Behavioral Health Services. Unfortunately, Joy Sloan, their executive director, cannot be here today as their entire staff is helping the victims from the apartment fire from this weekend. Our hearts go out to those who lost everything, and a big thank you to Green Country for always putting our community first. With all that being said, I'm excited to welcome our first Women's Leadership Conference speaker for this week, Billie Smith from Paradigm Shift. Billie Sue Smith is a psychology-obsessed corporate leadership development facilitator with a 24-year career in business development, community relations, and marketing. A professional writer, photographer, keynote speaker, and amateur golf pro, she prides herself most on a genuine curiosity and love for people. Most people have a story that will stop your heart, and Billie's career has centered around listening to and telling those stories. She has an associate's degree in legal studies and a bachelor's degree in psychology from Southern Nazarene University. When she's not single momming, 2 daughters, a 2023 high school senior, and a young adult fresh out of the nest, she serves as a volunteer mentor for the Oklahoma City Police Department Youth Leadership Academy, board member and member to the Leadership OKC Youth Exchange, volunteer coach for the Oklahoma City Police Athletic League, and she also donates time to several other organizations in the Oklahoma City area that serve her greatest passion, inner city teenagers. Wow. I'd like to welcome Billie Smith.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here with you all today, and I'm super excited to hear all the speakers this week. So thank you first, the Muskogee Chamber, for having myself and Paradigm Shift. I cannot think of a better way to spend my time than surrounded by powerful, successful women. Don't tell the men I said that, but it's true. I am a new fan of Muskogee, Oklahoma, having just visited a few months ago. Jared Murr, the owner and founder of Paradigm Shift, as many of you know, before I came to Muskogee the first time, he said, it's the Anaheim, California of Oklahoma. So I've never visited Anaheim, and I was confused by the connection. And he said, well, Anaheim has cheap land and lots of fruit trees. We don't have that many fruit trees in Muskogee, but we do have cheap land. So that's the only dad joke I'll tell today. My name is Billie Sue Smith, double L-I-E, and yes, I do have 2 first names on my birth certificate. I was named after a dear friend of my grandma's who died a couple weeks before I was born. I dropped the Sue when I was about 13 because I just got tired of being made fun of. And then you get older and sentimental and realize that you got the name for a reason. So here I am, back to Billie Sue Smith. When I travel to other states, people almost immediately guess that I'm from Texas or Oklahoma the moment I introduce myself. And I am a very, very proud Okie, and I love telling people because they have this image of Oklahoma, right? That we're all riding around in the back of pickup trucks with hay hanging out of our mouth like, hey, y'all. So I love explaining to people that Oklahoma is actually so cultured. We have a really strong foodie game, lots of cool things going on in Oklahoma. We do say y'all a lot, though. So I usually introduce myself by telling the story of the time that I met Joe Exotic, pre-Tiger King fame. But I'll save that story for another time. And instead, I'm going to introduce myself with my 6 core values. This is something that I've really been working on in the last year, identifying and honing in on those 6 core values. And it makes decision making and life simple, because if it doesn't fall in line with these 6 things, it's just a no. It's a hard pass for me. So I don't like that the list is 6. I feel like as a David Letterman fan, a list needs to be 10 or 5 or maybe 3, but 6 is uncomfortable. I don't like it, but I couldn't take one off. And 10 core values is way too many to manage trying to live life, right? So I'm going to list these core values off quickly, and I would love it if you would drop your core values in the chat. I always enjoy hearing about other people's as well. Number 1, mama. I have been a single solo income parent since my daughters were 4 and 1. Their dad, my ex-husband, has spent 20 years in and out of addiction. And as many of you know who have been touched by addiction, that means some stints in rehab and prison. We do not hide our story. We're not ashamed of it. Thank you, therapy, for helping me get there. But I feel strongly about, you have to own your story or your story owns you. So it has brought us many struggles in our life, which have made us much more empathetic people, much more understanding of the world around us. Those 2 little girls are now 20. Avery is a dog groomer and a full-time online college student, currently living her best life in a downtown Oklahoma City apartment. Makes her mama so nervous, but she is a great kid. She's doing great things. Danny is 17. She is a crew leader and a car hop at Sonic, making more money than a lot of adults I know. I had no idea that they made that kind of money. So when she got promoted to crew leader, which is a supervisory position, I realized as a teenager in fast food, all you got to really do is keep showing up, and eventually you'll just be the manager. So we are a very tight little unit, the 3 of us, but can I just get an amen for having these kids off of mama's payroll? I am living my best life, y'all, and I have no shame about that. Number 2 is connection. My genuine curiosity about people started in a grocery store. My mom loves to tell the story. I was 3 years old. I walked up to a man and said, and I quote, "What happened to your arm?" Because he was missing an arm. And he explained to my horrified mother that I would much prefer people ask questions than just stare. So he explained to me that his arm was bitten off by a shark in the ocean. So he told us he was kidding, but even now at 44 years old, you're not going to catch me wading out into the ocean above waist deep water. Nope, no thank you, Jaws, no, none of that for me. So I stay on the shore these days. Let's see. I love people. I love telling their stories. I love hearing their stories. I have my whole life. And so connection is how my soul shines. Number 3, adventure. Recently, my friend Kelly and I, doing these empty nester things, we took a road trip across a bunch of small towns in Oklahoma to see the Circus Performer Cemetery in Hugo, Oklahoma. And so someone told me that the town of Hugo is a circus town. And I've been obsessed with the circus my whole life, and I had to see it. So we drove 8 hours to end up 4 hours away. That's how it works when you love people, right? You stop in every town and you meet all the people. But we walked through the cemetery, reading all of the tombstones, crying, laughing. It was incredible. While I hope to one day visit, Bali and Greece, all the normal things, I find adventures even down the street. Life can just be one big adventure, and that's just the way that I prefer to live. Number 4, creative. Creative isn't just what I do for a living or for fun. It's just who I am. It's in my blood. Whether I'm writing, photographing, refinishing a piece of furniture, or trying to design a DIY seat for my kayak, creating is just how I feel alive inside. Number 5, curious. At the age of 44, I went from having 0 cats and not liking cats to now having 2 who are the greatest loves of my life. For real. Their names are Doja Cat and Missy Elliott, and they are my spirit animals because they're so curious about any and everything around them. I think that my curiosity is how I learned to golf in my 40s without any official lessons. I'm a self-taught photographer who ran a freelance business for a long time. So when you're a single mom, you always got to have a second income, right? So I am genuinely curious about how things and people work, and I'm not afraid to ask 987 questions and watch some YouTube videos to find out. Number 6 on the list of core values, I'm a truth teller. I tell myself and others the truth, and I do my very best to deliver it gently and with kindness. I did not always tell the truth about myself, about the things I needed to change and improve on. And I certainly didn't tell the truth to others when they hurt me or to communicate boundaries. And what happened to me is that I was always swallowing that truth, which is like poison. And I ended up riddled with bouts of depression and anxiety. So these days, I speak the truth even when I'm scared. I ask others to tell the truth. And like Brene Brown says, clear is kind and unclear is unkind. And when I'm not telling myself and others the truth, I'm not operating inside of my integrity, and my entire life starts to spin out of control. I know many of you can probably relate to that. So today I'm going to talk to you about a topic that I am so passionate about, and that is cross-generational leadership, which we at Paradigm Shift call from 8-track to emoji. I don't know if you knew this, but in 2022, we have 5 different generations in the workplace who all have drastically different views. So while I believe that we all want to work together in beautiful harmony, there are so many challenges to making that a reality. So how can we be transformational leaders that bridge the gap between generations? Before I get into some tips, tricks, and tell you some success stories, let's talk about some facts, myths, and misconceptions. And again, feel free to drop your thoughts in the chat as I'm talking. I love to have conversation and engage with you. So tell me any of your thoughts as I'm talking. So right now we have what we're going to call today, for the purpose of this topic, established generations. Established generations include traditionalists, those who were born between 1928 and 1945, baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964, and Gen X 1965 to 1980. Then we have upcoming generations, and those include millennials 1981 to 1996, and Gen Z 1997 to 2015. The first myth that we have to dispel is that there are hard and fast rules as to what makes a generation. Because generations aren't just defined by birth year, but more of our emotional connection to things, to events, to songs. Many of those things are so emotionally charged, and we connect easier, obviously, to others who can relate. For example, if I talk about the year that I got the Nintendo, the original first Nintendo for Christmas from Santa Claus, some people in my workplace are going to get excited with me, and we're going to talk about Super Mario Bros. And Mike Tyson Punch-Out, all the games. But I work with lots of young people who are under the age of 30, and most of them, some of them were not even born when that Nintendo came out. So who do you think I connect easier with? The coworker who understands the Nintendo, who remembers when New Kids on the Block came out with their first album, and the one who knows the struggle of teasing the bangs and using a bunch of Aquanet to make this giant hair, right? So I want you to think for a moment and type into the chat your answers to the following questions, and I want to read some of them out loud. Think of the first major pop culture icon from your generation, and just drop these answers into the chat. For me, that's definitely New Kids on the Block. My first cousin was obsessed with New Kids. She had, yes, Rhonda, there's another New Kids fan. She had the sheets, the posters, every trinket the New Kids on the Block sold. She was their market, their target audience. She had all of it, and she's still obsessed with them today. Michael Jackson is a really good one, Melissa. I think a lot of people say that one. JT, Justin Timberlake, I love it. What's the first major social event that you remember occurring in your childhood? And when I say childhood, I mean from the age of 5 to 15. So mine was the Challenger space shuttle exploding. I don't remember the year, but I do remember very vividly that. And also I was in high school when the Murrah bombing occurred. Space shuttle, Susan. And then 9/11 Challenger, yes. There's Abigail King, 9/11. Elvis died when I was 7. Wow. I wish I would have had more of Elvis. I'm a huge Elvis fan. The Challenger and the Ronald Reagan shooting. Rhonda Todd said she was a senior in high school when the bombing happened. We're about the same age. Kay Flush, John Lennon died my senior year. Wow, I love it. And then what major piece of technology do you remember from your childhood? So I remember when my parents got a computer before most people had computers, it had the giant back to it, and it was so slow and made all these noises. And then I had a pager. And I remember when my parents got a bag phone, like the little phone that plugs into the car, the first iPhone and iPods. That was, yes, Atari. I loved Atari. VHS, VCR, party lines. Wow, I can't imagine what that was like, Danielle. Blu-ray player, pager and bag phone. Patty said, I hated party lines. I think I would not have liked people being able to listen in. My first flip phone, a Game Boy. I love it, love it. So on the surface, it might seem like I have nothing in common with a 20-year-old college student because we hire college interns at Paradigm Shift. And I am officially at the age, I'm old enough to be their mom, and not just their, oh, I was really, really young when I had them, like just their actual mom. So on the surface, you would think, what does a 44-year-old woman with grown kids and an established career have in common with a 20-year-old college student? But we're both human. We are both living the human experience. It doesn't matter what their age is or what my age is. We're all out here doing this thing, and it's hard, right? Brene Brown says in her book, Dare to Lead, it's one of my favorite things, and I'm a huge Brene fan. I've read all of her books. But she says that having the exact same experience as another person isn't required to feel empathy as long as we can connect to the emotion. And so did I know how it felt when my friend Terry lost her adult son to suicide? No, but I do know the feeling of loss. I knew the feeling of loss enough to hold her hand. I know how you must be hurting, right? And so when we apply that to cross-generational leadership, we have the ability to connect and create very powerful, mutually beneficial relationships. We're all just humans walking through life. I love, as Scott said, microwave, and BM Luce said, I was so excited to get a typewriter in middle school. I love that. I saw a woman using a typewriter the other day, and I wanted to take a photo, and then I thought, she's in her zone over there. I don't want to interrupt her. So the second myth that we have to dispel is that millennials are all young. Millennials, I know there are lots of you in the chat. I can tell by the things you're writing. And here's the thing, these poor millennials, y'all just get the brunt of every younger generation joke, when in reality, millennials aren't that young anymore. Millennials now are in their 20s, they're in their 30s, and some of them are even in their 40s. It's almost like we took a snapshot of millennials when they were really young, and then we never allowed them to grow up, right? Kind of like my great uncle Roy, who used to tell stories, call me baby doll, and tell stories about me when I was 5. And this was well into his 90s, and I'm in my 30s, and he's still talking to me and about me like I'm a 5-year-old, which I loved. But it's almost like that with millennials. We never let the millennials grow up. Anytime someone has a reference to younger people, younger generations, that it's always millennials, but millennials are kind of old now. They're getting up here with the rest of us. So the third myth is that a generation is only defined by their age, when in reality, it's mostly defined by their frame of reference, like we talked about earlier. This is why Paradigm Shift, when we are facilitating workshops for educational entities or companies, we ask which generation participants identify with. Because even though by number I'm a Gen X, I have a lot of millennial traits. I mean, I want to take lots of vacations, and I want to go to work at 9. I don't want to be there at 7 like some of my older coworkers I've had in the past who think that you need to show up at 7 or you're late. I want to come in at 9 with the millennials, you know? So all these things are reasons that why making generalizations are rarely helpful when creating cross-generational bonds with people, because you know what trumps your age or generational reference every time, every single time. who you are as an individual, who the person next to you is as an individual. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in making all these generalizations about people that we just don't dig deeper and find the ways that we're very similar, because we really are. So when my 20-year-old, her name is Avery, she has a mentor who is a 60-year-old male. Now, if you are raising your eyebrows right now, good looking out for your soul sister here, because I was too. I had all of these middle-aged mom thoughts going through my head, all the jaded, what are this man's intentions with my daughters, right? But then I got to know the dynamic better, and I realized that they are very similar people who actually had a lot to learn from each other. They met randomly. She was grooming his dog. He was one of her clients. Her not having that strong male figure in her life, which she's had some of those, but I just feel like he came into her life at the right time. And they have formed a very powerful and mutually beneficial relationship. And as I've gotten to know him better, I thought, shame on you for thinking the worst of this man and what his intentions were with my daughter. He's been a very powerful mentor to her. And I know that he enjoys sharing his wisdom and stories, because let's be honest, people kind of stop listening as a person ages. I think we're all a little guilty of, we've already heard that story. We don't want to hear that again. I hear so many older people say they feel invisible, and that just breaks my heart, because there are so many great stories they have to tell. Let's talk about some upcoming trends for the upcoming generations, which again includes millennials and the Gen Zs. Number one is redefining the definition of adulthood. So I want to ask you in the chat, I'm curious to see your answers before I tell you what they are. There have historically been 5 rites of passage that qualify you as an adult. And what do you think those 5 things are? There are 5 kind of life events that once you meet those, people think you're an adult. So type into the chat, in America. Yes, thank you, Lindsay. Is it Lindsay? Yes. Living on your own, Monica. Lee Combs said marriage, independence, kids, buying a house, getting a big kid job. Costco. I love Susan Ross said Costco membership. Ooh, I don't have one, so I guess I'm not an adult. Graduating, becoming 18 years old. So historically, this audience has been, they've already guessed them all, I think. So graduate, you get married, you have children, you get a career, you buy a house, and then you're an adult. Although debatable, this list, how this happens has changed drastically over the last 50 years, as we know. And there used to just be a much clearer distinction on what made someone an adult. But today, 2 people of the same age can do things very, very different. My 20-year-old is already living on her own. She will hardly let me do anything for her. My 17-year-old, though, I have a feeling she'll be living at home till she's 25. Okay, I mean, people do things differently. But why does this matter? Because we tend to not give people the same respect if we don't qualify them as an adult. Jennifer said adulting is a trap. I agree, Jennifer. I mean, these kids just don't know. Like, why are you trying to grow up so fast? You don't want to be out here. Yeah, we tend to not give the same respect to people that we don't feel are adults. And I might have my own idea of what an adult is. And reaching adulthood just looks a lot different these days than it used to. Number 2, digital native. So let me tell you something. Back in my day, I am officially that adult too, who says that all the time. Back in my day, when we took a road trip with our family, my brother and I, the only things we got to do in the back seat was arm wrestle, play pinochle, find numbers or letters on license plates and form words. And those are the games that we played. Our parents screamed at us, threatened to pull the car over. We might have gotten a backhand to the mouth a time or two. That's what we did. I don't know how many of you have young kids or have seen, like my kids are older, but I see these cars that have TVs built in. So the TV drops out of the ceiling or it's on the back of the seat and the kids can watch a movie all the way there. Young people, younger upcoming generations are digital native. They are digital native. They have grown up with phones in their hands. They were born with phones in their hands, right? They've had technology right at their fingertips. And so they have access to any information at any moment, which brings me to number 3 is instant gratification. This is one you hear a lot. Upcoming generations were born getting things quickly. They have never had to wait. They've never had to wait. And if we're being real honest, most of us living in America right now are pretty accustomed to the instant gratification. Younger generations, though, they've had those dopamine hits going from a young age. Their brains are just lit up because they have it at their fingertips. So smartphones have provided them with a virtually unlimited supply of social stimuli, both positive and negative. We know there are both. Jody Butler said this younger generation is super hard to impress. So true. I mean, you came out with a good movie with good graphics when we were younger, and we were impressed by that. But you're right, they've seen everything. So that's why many of us, especially young people, feel the need to be on our phones constantly. It gives us a dopamine hit. It's a quick, easy way to socialize. As humans, we're wired for connection. And so that's why we're addicted to our phones. But this can be frustrating for established generations who don't have the same history or emotional attachment to their phones. So we either lock horns when we're in the workplace. We've got an established generation and an upcoming generation. This one's on their phone. This one doesn't understand, and they lock horns over the phone situation. Or we can push to create some harmony by simply allowing some phone breaks, just like we used to give people smoke breaks. Or my daughter has a boss. She works at Sonic. So the franchise owner is 27 and he runs the Sonic. He's there 6 days a week. So he has boundaries around phones. You have to when you employ lots of young people. He allows them to have their phones until they're on their phones too much. And then he takes the phones away for their shift, gives them breaks with the phone. And when the rules are abused, he just doesn't allow them to have the phones. And so when established generations say upcoming generations are entitled, and I know we've all heard it, especially millennials are entitled, again, with the millennials being the only young people on the earth. I don't believe that. I volunteer and mentor with lots of teenagers. That's my heart. It's my passion. And I'm telling you, so many of them are out here just working so hard to create a life for themselves. What is true of young people, though, bless their hearts, they are impatient. They want what they want and they want it now. And I'm guilty too. I know many of us are. Millennials, not millennials. Whoops, look at me. I almost did it. Upcoming generations will say, why do I have to wait? Why can't I make 6 figures now? Why does seniority matter? Why? It's not a sense of entitlement. It is a need for instant gratification and impatience. We, the established generations, we have to find a way to reach those needs in creative ways. And for one thing, it's understanding they're not asking why to be disrespectful most of the time. They're really curious. They want to know why. They don't want to wait. So you're just going to have to do a little more explaining most of the time. Speaking of the established generations, let's talk about some of their unconscious biases, the things they say. When I was younger, we worked a lot harder. The world is doomed with this younger generation running it. Young people these days are lazy and unmotivated. Back in my day, we clocked in and out for 8 hours and we took 1 week of vacation a year. We all know that doesn't really work with younger generations. These are examples of declinism. Declinism is remembering the past better than it was and imagining the future worse than it will actually be. The truth is, older generations have always thought that they had it harder, and they always think the younger generation could do better. And I know from living through a few generations in a big family, a big multi-generation family, that is the absolute truth. So what can we do? Monica Champ is asking, what's the answer? I'm about to give you the answer, Monica. So you can call me Pollyanna. And for those who don't know, Pollyanna was a 1960s movie about an eternally optimistic young girl who saw the good in everything. And I try to live my life like Pollyanna, but I just think we've spent enough time talking about the challenges. So now we're all aware, and I'm excited to talk to you about some solutions. Because I've served as a mentor, as I said, to teenagers as a 44-year-old for many years. And I assure you, there is a way to cross-pollinate generations. I've felt your frustrations, both with younger people and older people in the workplace. So I get it. I really do. But I like to stay focused on solutions too, because we just don't get anywhere unless we do that. So here are the top 10 ways, the top 10, David Letterman. Where are my David Letterman fans at? Love David Letterman. These are the top 10 ways that you can be a rock star cross-generational leader and inspire some change in your workplace. Because the best way to inspire change in the people around you is just to do it. They see you doing it. Number 1, if you are a younger person, cut the older people a little slack. Listen to their stories. Try to uncover their unconscious bias. ask questions. There is so much that we can learn from older generations. And I'm saying that as an older person because now suddenly I want to hear all the stories. And a lot of the people in my family are gone. And I have a lot of regret that I didn't sit down and ask more questions when I was younger. If you're an older person, instead of being frustrated with someone younger, realize that it's not an intelligence or a generation issue. It's simply a lack of knowledge. It really is. Sometimes we take for granted that all these years on earth, we've learned a lot. And then we're frustrated with the younger people when they don't know something. But sometimes they just haven't had the years we've had to learn it. So be willing to teach them and be patient with them. Number 3, young people learn out of curiosity and cats. Had to bring up the cats again. While older adults usually want to have a specific reason in an immediate application. There's a reason that YouTube channels are so popular among older people because most of them are teaching them how to do something, and they'll figure out they need to learn something for a purpose and then run to YouTube, run to these places and watch these videos. I say that because when I was trying to find a DIY for a kayak seat, there were lots of older people who were also trying to figure out this challenge of how to be more comfortable and avoid the back issues in the kayak. Being Gen X, though, I never learned to play golf. I had no interest. I thought it was a sport for old people. And I kept getting left out of client tournaments. I was working in a male-dominated industry. I kept getting left out of the tournaments, and they would want me to just be the marketing person shaking hands, but I wanted to play. I wanted to actually ride in a cart with a client. But I had to learn to play. And so I had to learn to play in just a few months because there was a tournament coming up. So this really resonates with me because all of these years, I had zero interest in playing golf. Like I didn't have a purpose for it. But the moment there was a tournament coming up that I wanted to play in, I started watching TikToks and I started watching YouTube and I started doing all these tutorials and asking people for tips. And so I learned to play in just a few months because I had a reason for it. So what I'm saying is, be more patient with a younger person's curious nature because they just want to know everything and know how to do everything, and be willing to learn something new, even if there isn't an immediate application for it. Number 4, don't be so quick to judge or criticize based on age or generation. Every upcoming generation dismisses older generations, and every established generation dismisses upcoming generations. Be the one who embraces it. Number 5, establish trust. You establish trust with older generations by having integrity, doing what you say you'll do, meaning what you say, and you build with younger generations by creating connection. Being patient, establishing non-negotiables and boundaries instead of making hard rules. That's how you create connection. So younger generations aren't as great at following black and white steadfast rules, but they do understand here are the non-negotiables, here's what you cannot do, and then be flexible around the other things. So that brings me to number 6, choose boundaries over rules. Creating social contracts, which just means if you do this, this is what happens. You can do this, but this is what happens. This is the consequence. Ask them questions like, what time do they want to show up? When do they want to take breaks? How would they like to connect with the fellow employees around them? Ask them for ideas and then share yours too. Get a big group around a table, just like Brene Brown says, get a rumble going, get everyone around the table, ask these questions and get feedback, and then share your ideas too. Number 7 is treat everyone with respect. That's it. That's number 7. That eliminates a lot of issues right there. Treat everyone with respect. Number 8, work to start the conversation. Again, get people talking about what they need. Send surveys. Invite someone younger or older to lunch. Ask a younger person why unlimited PTO is important to them. I've heard this one a lot. A lot of older generations will say, you know, the unlimited PTO thing is, why are we doing that? Who needs unlimited PTO? I mean, a lot of younger generations, they value that. And that's why you see more and more companies doing that. Number 9, seek to connect in fun ways. Most people love to talk about themselves and they love to have fun. So put the focus on emotional individual connections with the people around you. Often those connections begin with a little bit of laughter. And I know a company called Paradigm Shift in the Anaheim, California of Oklahoma, Muskogee, that can help you do that with your company retreats, meetings. We facilitate workshops and we do exactly that. We get everyone bonding and talking and having fun. And then we let you do the details of your business. Number 10, I had to do a drum roll because this one's important. I want you to remember that every time you make a blanket statement, and this is about any group of people, anytime you make a blanket statement about a group of people, you disrespect the individuals under the blanket who are putting their heart and soul into creating change and doing the right thing. And so and there are lots of them. There are so many of them, so many young people, so many older people who are just working really hard to do the right thing. And they multiply when you pour into them. The young people who are doing great things, they start to multiply. The more that you invest in them, the more you listen to them, they multiply. So words are powerful. And I want all of us, and I'm reminding myself while I'm reminding you, that we should choose them carefully. You never know who's listening, who's hearing you say the blanket statements. So just remember, no blanket statements. Ladies, it has truly been such an honor to be here with you today. I have the coolest job in the world, and I never take that for granted. And if any of you ever have a need for a workshop, someone to come and razzle dazzle at your event, we are your people. I would love for you to connect and follow me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Billie Sue Smith, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for being a part of my story.
Thank you, Billie Sue. Does anyone have any questions they want to pop in the chat? We have a couple of minutes before we need to move on.
Oh, I love all the feedback. Thank you.
All right. I do want to say a big thank you to all of our sponsors once again. Without them, we couldn't do the things that we're doing this week. So they are a huge part of what we're doing for our Women's Leadership Conference. Please be sure to join us tomorrow here on Zoom again, 10 a.m. for Debbie Thornburg. She is the Facility Transformation Leader for Georgia Pacific. So same time, same place. You should get the link later this afternoon. Also, we hope to see everyone tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. If you're not a morning person like me, it might be 7:10-ish or so when you roll in, and that's okay. We'll be at Queen City and Company for a Common Grounds presented by Premier USA. And you'll be able to chat with other conference attendees, grab a coffee, and most importantly, expand your network. Be sure also to follow the Women's Leadership Facebook page to see daily recognition of local women, information on this week's networking events, and even more exciting, our giveaways. For a full rundown of the week's events, you can also visit muscogeechamber.org. Okay, ladies, it's prize time. Today's giveaway is a $30 gift card from Beb's Flowers, located at 701 West Broadway. Here we go. We're spinning. The suspense. All right, Karen Ness, you are the winner today. You will receive a $30 gift certificate from Beb's Flowers. So treat yourself. Go buy yourself a pretty plant or some pretty flowers. You deserve it. Thank you, everyone, and we hope to see you tomorrow.